Hi, and welcome to Habits for Humans, the podcast that explores what makes people tick and how to program this brain of ours to do what we want it to do. We're going to explore why we can sometimes, in some areas of our lives, achieve extraordinary accomplishments, while in other times we're addicted to playing games on my iPad that I might do for hours at a time and watching TV. If we want to be healthy and happy, what is the secret to programming our brain to maximize our potential? I'm your host, Kim Flynn, and today we're going to talk to Shelly Jo Wahlstrom. I've known Shelly for several years now. She's got a really impressive product and something that I know nothing about that I'm so excited to dig into and understand more of, and that is amino acids. She has a whole product line of amino acids. She has some giveaways for you at the end of our show today, so stay tuned to the end for those giveaways. But we're going to talk about amino acids, nutrition, and hypnotherapy, a really unique combo of three things that I've never seen be put together before. And we're going to specifically explore more about amino acids. And I really want to know, Shelly, because I don't know anything about them. So a word first from our sponsor. Habits for Humans is brought to you by Card Salad, a health and wellness company that teaches you how to program your brain using systems and habits. So you know how everyone wants to eat healthy, but you haven't gone grocery shopping, and it takes so long to meal plan every week, so you end up, putting in a freezer pizza and mac and cheese for dinner. So what I did to solve this was create a product and a program called Eat Well. It's a done-for-you meal planning system. It comes with a menu board you hang on your fridge, recipe cards so you always know what's for dinner, done-for-you shopping list, so there's no question, and habit cards to develop habits to last a lifetime. Stay tuned to the end and you'll get a free week of meal planning delivered straight to your inbox. So I'm excited to introduce Shelly Jo. She is the amino acid lady and a hypnotherapist. She's a certified hypnotherapist. She's certified in addiction recovery and mental health. She is an amino acid specialist. She's the owner of Shelly Jo Hypno Aminos Nutrition. She's the author of the book, Feed Your Brain, Change Your Life, Take Control of Your Brain, Body, and Emotions. And she lives boldly with her family. I love that. I want to ask you the very first question, Shelly, so get ready for this. What does it mean to live boldly with your family? I love that. Her favorite name is Grandma Shelly. And before we hit record on this podcast, her adorable little granddaughter came in with a picture to show me, which is so cute. And she works with children to adults to balance their brain and body health, self-esteem, weight, thoughts, and emotions. If there's one phrase that incorporates what Shelly Jo is and believes, it's hope and answers come simply, life matters, and you matter. So let's jump into Shelly, what does it mean to live boldly with your family?
Oh, I love that, Kim. Last year during 2020, I went roller skating, and I hadn't been roller skating since I was 15. And I went with my daughter to the roller skating rink, and I remember loving it so much. It literally took me back in time. I went to classic, and it literally looked like it was back in the 80s or even the 70s. And I was like, this is so much fun. I had the wind in my hair. I'm like, this is amazing. And I bought me these super expensive skates, and my daughter and I had a great time. Well, I took those skates home, and I thought, I'm going to go skate up on a trail that we have by my house. But I didn't take into consideration that I had to get there and get home. Well, on the way home, I was working my way back on the cement and went from the sidewalk into the road, and I fell backwards and I broke my arm. And I had this big scar right here. Yeah. I call this my Wonder Woman arm because it's got a plate in there. And the funny thing is I would tell people, how'd you break your arm? I'm like, well, I was roller skating. And they laugh. And I'm like, why are you laughing? They're like, well, are you too old to do this? And I'm 58. And I'm to myself, I'm like, no. And it kind of had me look at things for a minute because I thought to myself, am I too old to go, roller skating and skiing and dancing and do all the things I do? And I was like, no, this life is to live. And it hit me that I'm choosing to live boldly, meaning big, and show up in my life and enjoy it, every bit of it, with myself, my family, and whatever I choose to do.
I love it. I absolutely love that. You're like, whatever, I'm old. I'm going to go roller skating.
Yeah.
That's adorable. I love that. All right, next question for you. We always start with your number one habit to manage your mental wellness, and post-COVID, post 2020, managing mental wellness is obviously really, really important and kind of on our national radar. So you talk about breathing belly breaths and something about a
Yes,
vagus nerve. Will you talk to us about that? What do you do?
I would. So when I'm working with my clients in hypnosis, one of the things, and especially even myself, is belly breathing is when you're breathing down here. So if I showed you right here rather than here, because if you've seen a baby breathe, when they're little, they belly breathe, right? That's how we came out breathing. And yet when somehow when we turned vertical, we started breathing here, right? And it's a very shallow breath. So I have when you breathe here, it's all this. So you can see somebody when they're breathing very shallow. It's this kind of breath, right? It's very, and what it is a fight or flight breath. It means that you're always in awareness of, oh my gosh, something's happening. I got to be aware, and which adds to the stress. The challenge is when if this is how you breathe and you struggle with anxiety or worry, stress, what it does is it makes it worse because you're only using the top of your lungs, and so you're not being able to get the carbon monoxide moving in and out of your body the way it's supposed to. And so somebody who starts to feel that panic, it's they're trying to take in too much air, and it makes it really hard to breathe. And it causes your lungs to constrict, your chest to constrict. It makes you feel. Some people end up in the hospital feeling like they're having a heart attack and they're having a panic attack, and it's because the vagus nerve is the central nerve in your it's the biggest nerve in your central nervous system, and its job is rest and digest. It is a parasympathetic nerve, meaning you can't turn it off all the way, but you can make it so it doesn't work very well. And when it's not working, then your body's ability to rest naturally doesn't work as well. And digestion. So people who struggle with digestion, part of it could be that that vagus nerve is not engaging and is not working. So what I have my clients do is I say, put your hand on your tummy and pretend like you have a balloon in there. And I say, visualize what your favorite color is, and then breathe down
Hey,
here.
Shelly, will you
Yes.
actually take us through maybe like 4 or 5 belly breaths? And keep in mind that it's a lot of people will be listening to this audio and video, so kind of walk us through it. Would you mind doing that?
Oh, I'd love to. So what I would first have you do is put one hand here, one hand on your belly.
So one hand on your chest and one hand on your
Uh-huh.
belly.
And
Okay.
I'd have you take a deep breath. And those who are listening, I want you to find out which hand lifts. Is it this hand or is it the bottom hand?
Oh shoot, it's the chest hand.
And the thing is we're not even aware of it. So that would be the first thing. And then that would tell you. So either you're breathing in your chest or you're breathing in your belly. If you can get your belly if you start breathing diaphragmically in the belly, your body will relax naturally. So what I would say is, let's pretend and imagine you have a balloon in your belly. My favorite color, obviously, is pink. So as I'm breathing in, I'm filling that balloon with air. I don't know if you can see that. And exhale, and then I push it back in, right? So you inhale and you exhale. So there's no movement here. So check your movement. There should be no movement. And exhale. And if you're not used to it, it's a different sensation. And some people, it's hard because it almost makes you feel like you're not getting any air because you're not used to breathing down in your diaphragm.
Hmm.
But by doing that, it's going to engage your vagus nerve again, strengthen it, so that it will allow you to relax. And so if anxiety or worry or stress are something you struggle with, one of the first things you can do is get yourself to breathe naturally. The
Hmm.
other things you can do is gargle, or you can hum, and that will get it to engage. And like I said, it will help your digestion. So if you're somebody who struggles with digestion, there's a lot of people that get just focusing on your breathing. So that would be my first tip.
Awesome. I'm so interested. So even doing that just for 30 seconds or so, I can feel like the muscles, especially in my back, just kind of relax and melt.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Hmm.
Tell me about humming. I've never heard this before. Humming to
Right. Because
relax?
so humming, it when you have to hum with like vigor, like
With gusto.
right.
Like, are we humming a song or what are we doing here?
Anything you want to is it literally is by humming. You're also working to engage the vagus nerve.
That's so interesting.
Hmm.
Okay.
So
I'm
those are a
too
couple of exercises you can do.
I'm too embarrassed with my singing voice to actually hum for you, but I'm kind of tempted. I have a note here on my paper to hum after and try
Hmm.
that out too. But I can feel it still, like just that deep, calm relaxation in my muscles by that belly breathing. And that's super helpful to put your hand on your chest and put your hand on your stomach to see where you're coming from. I love that.
Hmm.
All
Oh, I
right,
love it. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
let's do. Oh, sorry.
I do that each time I speak in a conference, and I'll say, "Okay, everybody, take a deep breath," and like,
Nice, nice. Yeah, it
this
makes a
is not what you
difference.
want. Hmm.
All right, let's launch in then, Miss Shelly Joe. Let's
Okay.
talk about amino acids, the love of your life, one of your intimate partners. You love amino acids. Tell us
Uh,
what they are, first of all. Let's start there. What are they?
so, do you want me to start with what they are or how I
Yep.
found them?
Let's start with what they are first.
What they are is in your brain, you have what's called neurotransmitters, and they fire your happy, calm, feel good chemicals. So, when they're working, that's what you feel. When they quit working, or they're not working as well, they become depleted. Then symptoms and feelings of anxiety, depression, worry, lack of energy, lack of sleep, stress, weight gain, cravings, and addiction become real. And so, what that does is it's when that happens, we as humans want to live in that world of homeostasis. And so, we look for something to make us feel better. And we turn to cravings like sugar and starches. It could be caffeine, chocolate, could be alcohol, could be drugs, legal or illegal, um, could be behaviors such as gaming, gambling, pornography, too much shopping, too much internet, too much TV. Because while our body is saying, I want something, our brain is very smart and it knows what it can get, what it wants the fastest. And it literally holds us hostage until we give it what it wants. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. You either get them from your body makes some of them, which are called non essential. You get them from food, protein. Protein is so important. I tell my clients that protein is non negotiable. 3 times a day, protein is so important. Or you get it from a supplement and you feed it. And literally, what amino acids are food for those neurotransmitters. It's literally feeding the brain what it needs. And those neurotransmitters become depleted for different reasons. One is they become depleted because you're born with less of them. So if you have a child that's struggling with anxiety or focus, or teenagers, or adults, it could be lifestyle, could be toxins, it could be diet. It could be the fact that 60% of the people over age 40, your amino acids or your neurotransmitters have become depleted. And I just say, we live in this perfectly imperfect body, and sometimes it just isn't working the way it's supposed to. But by feeding specific amino acids to the brain, there's 4 neurotransmitters. Dopamine, which is your energy, your drive. Serotonin is helps with a positive mind, helps with confidence, humor. You have endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. And GABA is your body's ability to relax naturally. So those are the 4 neurotransmitters. And there are specific amino acids that actually go up and feed those neurotransmitters and help them to start firing the way they're supposed to. And the cool thing is they're not meant to be on forever. You can be, they're just amino acids. But the idea is to get in there, start taking enough of them that you start feeding your brain so that you eventually can come down off of them. And then by supporting your nutrition with a nutritious diet with protein, good fats, and vegetables, high carbs, you can sustain those neurotransmitters. And that's when the food can actually help to sustain it or feed the neurotransmitters.
Okay, that's just so interesting. So just to recap, and I like to recap just so I can learn. So
Okay.
Four transmitters in your brain: dopamine, serotonin, endorphin, and GABA.
Uh-huh.
And all of those require different amino acids. And taking amino acids isn't like a lifetime thing. It's a
Mm-mm.
you want to replenish it, get it back to your good levels, and then you want your natural diet and good nutrition to supply those. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Exactly. Hmm.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. I want to hear a story. How did you get into this? How did you discover this? Why is no one else talking about this, or fewer people talking about this? Because this is pretty
Right.
interesting.
Right. I have three daughters. Um, and my youngest daughter at age 6 was had anxiety, really, really bad. I took her to the doctor, got her on some medication, and this is my disclaimer. First of all, I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe. I don't diagnose. I'm not against doctors. I think they're great, and I'm not against medications. I feel like there's a place for them. There's just not a medication that will heal you. And so we went from medication to medication, and at age 15, she came to me and said, "Mom, I'm tired of being a doctor's science product. I want to feel normal." And my heart was broke because I'm like, how can I help her to feel normal? And unfortunately, at that time, she turned to drugs and alcohol and marijuana.
Not when she was 6. I missed the age here.
Not at 6, at 15.
At 15. Okay.
Yes, at 15. So she
Full
at 6,
charge.
the diagnosis. At 15, the drugs and alcohol. And I'm not. I don't understand that world. It doesn't make sense to me. I've never been around that kind of world. So in my nativity, I thought I could either ground her enough or I could love her enough.
Wow, that's
Away from.
powerful.
Yeah.
Ground her enough or love her enough. Wow.
Yeah. It didn't work. And it was a hard struggle. Um, I helped her graduate. I should say I graduated with her. I don't know if that makes sense, but I know if you and anybody out there is listening, if you have a child that you're like, okay, I should have my name on the graduation to get her through, right? But we got her through high school. I'm like, yes, we survived, and put her in an expensive rehab program, thinking, okay, she'll come out, she'll be there 30 days, she'll come out, and she'll be done.
The experts will fix her. If I pay money,
Yeah,
it'll fix her.
they will fix her. Unfortunately, she did come out, well, I should say, fortunately, she did come out clean from drugs and alcohol. Unfortunately, she came out addicted to sugar, caffeine, and tobacco. But I'm like, well, if I have to have one or the other, I'll deal with this one, right? Because she was clean. And I thought, she's done, we'll move in and we'll live happily ever after. Well, 30 days after she came out of rehab, she met up with a friend she met in rehab who introduced her to meth. And that changed our life. I don't know
Oh, wow.
if you've ever been around people who are addicted to meth, it is the drug of the devil. It literally changes every aspect of them. I lived in fear that she may hurt me. I was afraid that she'd hurt herself, kill somebody, or end up in jail. And that was my fear every single time she left my house. And I just prayed that she'd come home. The first time she got put in jail, I was actually relieved because I'm like, whew, at least I know where she's at. And if I ever went to jail, I don't know about you, Kim, but I wouldn't have to go back. So that was my thought process was, well, she's done. She's done it. She won't have to do it again. But what I realized about an addict is, first of all, they don't want to be one. Second of all, they're usually self-medicating for something. And third is they're just white knuckling it. So I watched this process with her. She came out, Mom, I'm going to stay clean. She stayed clean about 6 months. About 6 months, she starts relapsing again, and then she ended up in jail. So I was totally in fear, and I prayed. And I just said, Heavenly Father, I need help. This was 2017. I had just become a hypnotherapist earlier. And I'm like, 2017 was one of those years, kind of like 2020, where my oldest daughter, the cute little granddaughter that just came in, she was diagnosed in January of 2017 with type 1 diabetes at 11 months old. So if you've ever had to give insulin, a tiny drop. My middle daughter was pregnant with her cute daughter, and she did everything natural, and it was wonderful, and had this baby, and within 3 days she was in postpartum OCD and ended up in the psych ward. And my third daughter was in jail for the third time. I only had three daughters.
That was a great year for you.
It was a great year. Yeah. It was one of those years where stress was like, my house leaked and all these different things were on top of me. And I just kept thinking, I need answers. Well, right after 2 days after I prayed, I got this. I was watching Gephardt, and he's a local news broadcaster who he broadcasts community events, community stories. And he happened to do a story on how in recovery centers, addiction recovery centers, they are using amino acids through IVs with these specific amino acids. And after 3 days, their cravings start to go away. And after 10 days, they're almost completely gone. And there's an 85% rate of recovery. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's my answer. But it's $1,000 a day. I'm like, well, maybe there's another answer. And so I started Googling amino acid therapy in addiction centers that used supplements because I knew there were supplements available. Maybe that would be the answer. And I found one in Florida, and I called them and said, look, I have clients as a hypnotherapist who are struggling, and I feel like there's something in the brain is not working right. And I have my daughter's an addict. Can you help me? And he's like, you know what? I could teach you everything you need to know, but in 2 weeks, we're having training in Salt Lake City, and you're going to learn everything you need to know. And I was like, that was my answer. And some people here might be listening, might go, oh, but I'm not an addict. And what happened is when I started learning this information, I got super excited because I'm like, wow, this is amazing stuff. I shared it with everybody. And when I realized, go ahead.
Oh, I have so many questions for you. So
okay.
You're saying such juicy things. I need to recap and then ask a bunch of questions here.
Okay.
So I'm like, I don't want you to cover anymore. I love the idea of the enough. You were trying to cure your daughter, and think about, for our listeners, think about any problem you're having in your life and listen to how we would do the same things. Ground her enough, which is punish her enough. Like maybe she'll change if I punish her enough. If I love her enough, that also doesn't work.
No.
If I pay enough for the rehab, if I have enough support through doctors or rehab specialists, and then if she goes to jail enough, if she's punished enough, and still it's nothing. If the problem is a physical root problem, then we can't solve it with psychology. Like if it's
right.
if a root problem is physical. I also love that you said there's something to know about addicts. They don't want to be one. And I don't have much an experience with addiction or family members with addiction. And so that one is really interesting to me. There's kind of a perception out there of addicts being the bad guy, of they want to destroy their lives. And I love that you're saying absolutely not. There's one thing about addicts is they don't want to be one. I love that.
No.
What did you learn? I want to ask you a question before you move on in your story, and I do want to hear the rest of it. But first, you had all these things falling down in your life. You had the house leaking, and your daughter was in jail, and your other daughter was in the psych ward and really struggling. Your other daughter had health problems with her baby, and all this is happening at once. Why do you think that life tends to do that to us? I just want to take your personal take on what you learned from that absolute crux of everything falling down all at one time.
Wow, that's a good question, Kim. I feel like when things are like that, it's because it caused me, before I could kind of float through this, right? I mean, I was struggling, but I was still, I was going through it. But when it got so bad, I had to get outside of me and look for an answer, and ask for an answer for something that was bigger than me, because I got to the point that I couldn't hold it all together. And that's when I finally said, help, I need an answer. That's when the answer came.
I think you said it so perfectly. And that really is, I think, the point of all struggle. Like, we can struggle, but as long as we're moving along, we're doing okay, we're managing. But when everything breaks down, that's when your phrase is you find something, or you reach for something bigger than yourself. And it pushes us for deep change. And in your situation, it pushed you completely changed the trajectory of your life.
Mhm.
You found this amino acid solution that you didn't know about, and you wouldn't have found that had your life not completely fallen apart. So I love
Absolutely.
how life works that way.
Imagine.
Ah.
Yeah.
Anyway, talk to us about because I always have little like red flags that pop up whenever someone says like, okay, 85% cure rate if you can have amino acids on a drip, even if it's $1,000 a day. I think we would be hearing all about this, right? So if it is the miracle cure, why are we not hearing about it? Or if it is it truly a miracle cure? Talk to us about that.
That's a great question. And this information has been out since the 90s. There's a lady named Julia Ross who uh, was looking for answers for her clients, and her and a doctor named Kenneth Bloom. There's also a lady named Trudy Scott who did a lot of research to find when they were working with their clients what their brain needed. And so they came up with this information in the 90s. She wrote a book called The Mood Cure and The Diet Cure and The Craving Cure, and she's amazing. I meet with her once a month. So the information is there, and that was the one thing that made me really angry, is because I'm like, my daughter was born in the 90s. Had I known there was something else at age 6, maybe she wouldn't have had to turn to drugs and alcohol at age 15. Because why are we not hearing this? That was my exact question. Why am I not hearing this? And the truth of the matter is there's no money in amino acids, and the pharmaceutical companies run the medical, um, the medical world, right? And so it's easier for them to get people on the drugs than not. And the interesting thing is, and like I said, I love my doctor and I love doctors, but in the United States, there's only 25% of the uh, schools in the medical schools in the United States teach anything about nutrition, and
Hmm.
those that do only teach 12 hours. When I learned this information, I went to my doctor and said, "Why don't you teach people about nutrition and things like that?" And he said, "Because once they start down a protocol, they're in that protocol, and when you don't use it, you lose it." And that's really why it's not brought up in the medical field, because um, they're just not taught it, and they don't, they're going to turn to more medications rather than amino acids.
Medicine is for fixing problems.
Right.
Nutrition is for preventing all the problems. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Okay, thanks for exploring that and giving us more resources to research. This is a really interesting topic. Okay, so your life is falling apart. Back to your story. Then what happens?
Okay. So I went to the class, and I was blown away. Myself, I'm a sugar addict. I used to drink a lot of Diet Coke, and I actually thought there was like a sugar gene. Everybody, all my family members love candy. I'm not a big chocolate person, but I love candy. To me, like cotton candy is like the sugar of the gods. I mean, it's like, give me the biggest one there is. And I always had candy with me. We talk about that sugar spike and crash. I don't know that I was ever spiking and crashing, because I literally had sugar with me all, in each of my waking hours. Well, when I went to the class, first of all, I was tired, and I'm like, it's 11 o'clock. I'm exhausted. All I want is a nap, a Diet Coke, and some Good and Plenty's. And I'm not sure how I'm going to make it till 5 o'clock.
So Good and Plenty were your drug of choice, yes? You're
Yep, yeah,
like,
absolutely. Sure.
IV
Yep.
shoot me with Good and
Good,
Plenty's.
Good
Yeah.
and Plenty's, cotton candy, Peeps, circus peanuts. You give it to me. I love it. And
Let me ask you this really quickly. How does someone know if they're a sugar addict or not? Is the sign just do you have candy with you at all times, or what's the mark of the sugar addict?
well, the mark would be is one of the things about the neurotransmitter is each of them have a telltale sign of if that neurotransmitter is depleted. The first
Interesting.
one,
Okay.
yeah, the first one's going to be if it's your the dopamine, you're going to crave something for stimulation, caffeine, sugar, starches, um, and you're looking for something to give you a boost, to give you that energy.
Interesting.
When your serotonin is low, you're going to have cravings, afternoon and evening cravings. Between that 3 hour to 5 o'clock hour, Same thing, could be sugar, could be starches, could be alcohol. That's why the happy hour for people who drink alcohol is that time period, because the serotonin drops and your brain says, I need something. So it's that time period. If you're needing something to relax you because you're like uptight, overstressed, that's going to be a GABA problem, and you're going to turn to the same kind of things. Or endorphins. Endorphins make you happy, right? So if you're looking for something to comfort, reward, or numb you, comfort, I want to feel love, reward, I deserve this, and numbing, I'm going to check out, and I'm going to turn to sugar, then that is another symptom. The other one is your blood sugar is so important. In front of your brain, you have what's called your prefrontal cortex. Its job is cognitive thought process. It's your judgment. It's your reason. I'm going to make this choice. This will be my outcome. For an addict, it's their tools to stay sober or stay clean. For somebody who's wanting to stay off sugar, it's the tools. But when you either miss meals or you're eating too much sugar or starches, what happens is your blood sugar, if you're skipping meals, your blood sugar crashes. And all of a sudden your body says, your brain says, I need something now. So it puts off adrenaline, which causes you to crave. And if it's sugar, that's when you find yourself in the pantry looking for anything that's got sugar. It's like when you're working and all of a sudden your brain says, I need it now. And you literally get up and go grab it.
And for me, it's bread. Like when I'm in that space, I'm like, oh, give me some bread with honey on it. That's what I want.
Yeah. Because it's the starches and the honey sugar, right? So then we get it and it causes us to spike because we don't have a little tiny bit because our brain feels like it's dying, right? And we eat too much and then we spike, which causes that hypoglycemic thing where we spike and crash. So this shuts off. We become irritable, which is that hangry feeling, and irrational is I want what I want. I could care less about the outcome. For an addict, that throws all their tools out the window. So even a sugar, somebody who struggles with sugar, those are going to be the telltale signs is you're grabbing it for a certain reason, energy or whatever that is. That's going to be like, oh, okay. And that was my idea. I did not realize that I was grabbing it for energy until I went to the class and learned. And the crazy thing is, she said at the time, she's like, okay, I'm going to give you tyrosine, which is the one that we use to raise dopamine. She said, I want you to rate yourself from 0 to 10. 0 is, I don't feel this way, to 10, oh my gosh, I feel this way, crazy. And that's what I felt like. I was like, I'm a 20. I just need, give me some sugar, give me some Diet Coke. I took one, and within 20 minutes, my level went from a 10 down to about 5. And I'm like, okay, is this like a placebo effect? Because I'm feeling something. I'm not sure I am, or am I just imagining it, right? Because nothing works that fast, is what my thought was. So she's like, if you're not all the way down to 0, take another one. And within that next 15, 20 minutes, I went from a 10, meaning I don't know how I'm going to last a day, to my cravings were gone for sugar and Diet Coke, and I had energy. And I'm like, wow, there's something about this. I don't understand it, but there's something about it.
Really interesting. So fast forward to today, you took this knowledge that you learned, you created your own line of amino acids. You have a thriving business now with hypnotherapy and amino acids. Let's jump straight into, as we wrap things up here, what you are giving away. Tell us about this quiz.
So I have a quiz. You can go to my website, hypnoaminos.com, and a quiz will pop up. And it says, could amino acids be your missing link? Click on that. It's very simple. It'll give you an idea of because what happens is there are specific symptoms to each of the neurotransmitters. There's things that you turn to when you feel that way, and there's amino acids that help us. So that's kind of the process. So when you take that test, it will give you the idea of, oh yeah, these are the symptoms I'm struggling with, and this is what I'm turning to when I need that, which will then give you the idea of which amino acids will help. So that'd be the first step. The second step is I have a book. So I wrote this book. That's what I did last year during 2020 because everything got canceled. I wrote a book, Feed Your Brain, Change Your Life, Take Control of Your Brain, Body, Emotions. It has my story in it. It's a how-to make the amino acids and nutrition and hypnotherapy, how they work together. And it's sprinkled with quotes because I love quotes. So there's a book that you can get, or you can meet with me. I do one-on-ones. I can do them in person or on Zoom. And I do it through, I can sit down with you and tell you exactly, well, not exactly, we'll tweak it, but I can help you to figure out how to make them work for you, how to get your brain your body and your thoughts together. Because that's really what it is. It's like a three-legged stool. Feed your brain with amino acids, feed your body with nutrition, feed and change your thoughts with hypnotherapy equals optimal health.
Oh, there's the three. There's the amino acids, the nutrition, and the hypnotherapy. I love it. It all came together there from the beginning to the end. I love it.
Yep, that's how it works.
And you're doing 10% off
I am.
products or services. Talk to us about that.
So you can go to my website and you can you're going to put in the code card salad, and it's going to give you 10% off.
Awesome. And this is all in the show notes too. So if you're on any of the podcasting platforms, you can check the show notes for it. If you're on habitsforhumans.com, you can also check the show notes, and we've got links to find Shelly and all of her stuff. So thank you, Shelly. That's super interesting. Really, really interesting. And I'm glad you took 2020 to write a book. That seems like it needed to happen. As we wrap things up, reminder that the goal of this podcast is to program your brain to start instilling systems and habits into your daily life. And hopefully one of those habits now is belly breathing. Thank you for that. As well as looking into amino acids. I think that's super interesting. And as always, feeding your body good foods. It's not about what you know, it's about what you do, starting one very small step at a time. We have another giveaway from our sponsor, Card Salad. Go to habitsforhumans.com and sign up for a free 7-day Eat Real Foods challenge, which is simply 7 days of meal planning with recipes done for you, including the shopping list, ready to go. So go ahead and download that, habitsforhumans.com, and you can find that link there. And your meal planning will be done for you for a week. On the next episode of Habits for Humans, we're going to explore living free. Really interesting premise from Rachel Jones, what it means to live free and how to do it. She's going to take us on a tour of her meditation room. This wasn't the original idea of the podcast, but I saw her room behind her and I was like, girl, show me this room of yours. It's this beautiful meditation room. And she talks about how she cleaned out her life by cleaning out her house from the inside, and it was reflected on the outside. So cleaning out her own thoughts and beliefs and whatever else on the inside, and how that has just been expressed on the outside. So join us on that next podcast with Rachel Jones. Shelly Jo, thank you so much for joining us. That was fascinating. I took 4 pages of notes. Thank you to our listeners too. This is Habits for Humans, the podcast that teaches you how to program your brain to maximize your potential. Thank you in advance for giving us a positive review, and have a good one. Thanks, everyone.